The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. Pastor Zack here, your host, and so glad that you joined us again today. You know, yesterday we heard Reverend Wendell Brown challenge us with a sobering question. Can God trust us with the gospel message he has placed in our hands? Today, he moves from the question to the practical application, giving us 4 characteristics of a trustworthy life: telling the truth, living by faith, walking with honor, and caring for others. Let's pick up where we left off in this inspiring camp meeting message from Reverend Wendell Brown. Let's check it out.
Second, what is it that makes a person trustworthy? You have faith. Have faith. Proverbs 28:26, those who trust their own insight are foolish, but anyone who walks in wisdom is safe. Hebrews 11, faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It's the evidence of what we cannot see. Through their faith, the people in the days of old earned a good reputation. And then you got to go to verse 6, because in my opinion, verse 6 is the verse of Hebrews 11. And it says this, and it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. So I am going to tell a story about coming to Circleville, though. I was pastoring in Tennessee for a year. I had struggled. Tammy and I had struggled. I'm from Alabama, y'all. I mean, Tennessee's the South. But you ever been somewhere where you just kind of felt like people were like, you ain't from around here, you know? And our church had grown. We'd grown from 140 to 350, and things were going great. But I could not get away from the fact that I felt like God wanted me to resign. Now, here's the problem with that. I had made a promise to God that if I ever took any position in the church, I would never just blanket send a resume out and ask for a job. I have no problem with anybody that does that. I'm very grateful for some of my pastors that have done that in my district. But it was a prayer in a moment of surrender. I said, God, if you will lead me, I'll trust that you will work it all out. So I struggled for a year with whether I should resign or not. Tammy and I both. And you know why I didn't resign? Quite honestly. I mean, I promised I wouldn't just send my resume out, so somebody's got to call and ask me if I want to go somewhere. You know why I didn't resign? Because I had a wife and 4 children that depended on my income. That's exactly why I didn't resign. I struggled with it. What am I going to do? What if it doesn't work out? And I'm reading, I'm having my devotional life. God had been working, and I'm having my devotional time. And I get to Hebrews 11:6, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And I felt the Lord say to me, do you believe what you tell everybody else? Well, yeah, I do, God. And then it was very clear, then why won't you resign for me? And at that point, it was like, okay, I think I need to resign. And the principle is, when I'm faced, and I've lived by it ever since this moment, when I'm faced with a choice, I don't put it on a balance sheet. I'm not weighing pros and cons. I'm sincerely asking God, which one forces me to trust you more? If faith is what pleases you, which one forces me to trust you more? That's the decision I want to make. That's the one. And so I walked in, Tammy and I did, we went to the board meeting, I resigned, I asked him for 90 days. 90 days. Sure, my DS loved me. 90 days. And it was so funny. One of the guys on the board, my board secretary was like, no, we're not accepting this, Wendell. Things are going too good. We are not accepting this. And one of my guys on the board just very quickly said, no. He's made his decision. So it's pretty clear where I stood there, right? I don't know if you guys know this from Circleville. On the night that I resigned, I had not sent my resume anywhere. But somebody connectionally had told Pastor Trevor about me. And on the night I resigned at that board meeting, now back then we had voicemail at home, Tammy and I walked in the door, and on our voicemail was, hello, this is Barbara Hart from Circleville, Ohio, and we'd like to talk to you about being our next pastor. Now, 90 days later, I didn't find out. I went and interviewed. I didn't find out until 6-7 days before my 90 days was up, whether I was going. And I was sweating bullets, like, what is going to happen? And then I got the call that we had the vote to go to Circleville. Now, I'm not telling you, I'm not telling anybody go resign your church. I'm not telling you that. I am saying it was really hard to get to that decision point. It was very hard. Things were going well. We had every reason to stay. Our church was running 350 in Tennessee, and 345 people signed a petition for us to stay. There were 5 that were happy, but 345 signed a petition we didn't even know about, and they presented it to us and asked us to stay. And I want you to know I owned a house that I couldn't sell. It about took me under. Even after I went to Circleville, it flooded in the great Nashville flood of 2010, and it was a mess. It was very hard financially. But can I tell you, God was so faithful. And can I tell you that I don't regret that decision 1 second of any day, because God did things and showed me things about myself, and I learned so much by just simply living in faith. If you want God to trust you, start living in faith. Quit worrying about your balance sheet. Quit worrying about, well, I'd like to make a pledge, but I just don't know if I have enough. Listen, if God lays it on your heart, He supplies. He does the work. He's just asking you, can I trust you with it? Somebody should get a little bit more pumped up about that. If you're going to be trustworthy, you're going to tell the truth. If you're going to be trustworthy, you're going to have faith. If you're going to be trustworthy, you're going to live with honor. Living with honor is when nobody's looking. Proverbs 28:9, God detests the prayers of a person who ignores His law. Whew. Romans 12, never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. My son Christian, I'm teaching him at 15 and a half how to drive. We kind of live out in the country a bit. I'm talking to him about living with honor and how important it is. And my son, 15 years old, says, Dad, I'm driving down the road. He's in the passenger seat, and I'm talking about it. I said, you got to live with honor, son. He goes, Dad, you don't live with honor. After I slammed on the brakes and he hit his head on the dash, and he gained consciousness again, I said to him, what do you mean? He said, Dad, you've been teaching me to drive. I said, you're right, Christian. He said, Dad, I watch you at every stop sign out here in the country. And Dad, you do not come to a complete stop. I said, you're right, Christian. You're right. I mean, now I could have said, hey, buddy, I'm 40 whatever, and when you're making money and you can pay your ticket, good on you, you know. I could have given him that. Listen, I'm a man. I can make my decisions. I could have done all that. I looked at him and I said, you know what? You're right, Christian, and I'm going to do better. And you know what I do? Every stop sign, I come to a complete stop when Christian is with me. No, I'm kidding. Listen, there are eyes. If you have claimed the image of Christ, if somebody in your community knows you're a Christian, then there are eyes watching what you do. They are. That shopping cart that you just leave by your car because you're in too big of a hurry, I promise you, the enemy can use that in someone's life to go, look at them, they're a Christian, and look at what they're doing. Now, I'm not talking about legalism. I'm talking about just doing the right things. Watching your behavior at ball games, even with bad calls, moms and grandpas and grandmas and dads and whatever. Watch your behavior. I'm talking about don't punch in early at work and say they owe it to me. Don't take a pen from work. Don't do anything in any way in which somebody could look at your life and say they didn't live with honor. There's too many eyes on you, like my son at 15 saying, hey, Dad, you're not living up to it either. Live with honor in your life. Last, got to tell the truth. I believe that from Proverbs 28. Tell the truth. Man, got to have faith. You got to live with honor. And then you got to care for others. You got to help others. Proverbs 28:27, whoever gives will lack nothing, but those who close their eyes to needs will be cursed. Philippians 2:4, don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others. I know sometimes this is a tough one in the church because sometimes we've been hurt. Sometimes church people hurt us. They do. I've seen it too often. But I also know this. There is such freedom in saying, God, if you can use my life even with the hurt, I let it go and I just want people to see you. There's such freedom in that. I know sometimes it's hard. I know, though, that also it's not just in the church, although, you know, the word kind of puts caring for others in the church. That's in the pecking order. But it's also caring for those in our community. It's caring for those that we come in contact with. Now, some of you maybe tonight will need to confess how you feel about people in your church or people in your community. But the reality is, if God's looking at your life, are you trustworthy? He's also looking at, do you love others? Do you care about others? Now, I do this thing every day. I don't expect anybody else to do it, but Ephesians 2:10. Everybody know what Ephesians 2:10 is? Anybody know it? Get the gold star tonight. My wife does, of course. Ephesians 2:10. As soon as I started, you're going, oh yeah, I know what it is. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works which God prepared in advance for us to do. Every morning before my feet hit the floor, before I get out of bed, I just say this: God, what is the good that you've prepared for me to do today? Don't let me miss it. Now that prayer is a great prayer, and that prayer is a scary prayer because every day it forces you to get your head off of yourself and your world and what's on your agenda and what you've got to do. And it forces you to lift your head up and go, all right, there's good somewhere. I've got to do it. I've got to look for it. I got to be watching that God prepared it for me to do, right? And it makes every day an adventure. Tammy and I are always lake people. And when we lived in Tennessee, we were coming off the lake, Labor Day. Coming off the lake. We went to Kroger in Dixon, Tennessee because we needed to have some lunch supplies. The next day was school and our kids needed lunch supplies. So we had an expedition at the time, one cell phone in the family. I pull in, Tammy and our oldest daughter get out, they go into Kroger. There's 2 doors in Kroger. They go in to get the lunch supplies. I'm with our youngest, which would have been about 4th grade, all the way down maybe to like kindergarten or something like that. And we're maybe even younger. Is that right? Kindergarten? Doesn't matter. All right, young. They're inside Kroger. All of a sudden, this woman walks out of Kroger and she walks back in. She walks out and she walks back in. She walks out of one door, and then out of this door is this guy that walks out. And they are pointing at each other and screaming at each other. And quite honestly, I prayed that prayer, whatever good I'm supposed to do. I didn't know that I wanted to get in the middle of that. That's my honest confession. Like, I don't know what's going on there. And my first thought was, well, at least I'm going to be entertained with a lover's quarrel while Tammy's shopping. That's a horrible thing, but I'm confessing it. It's what happened. They walk, I'm diagonal. They walk in the row in front of me. They get in this beat up Cavalier. They back out. They go down the line. There is an elderly woman who is putting her groceries in her car. And as she puts them in, her purse is in the baby portion of her cart. And I watch as the lady in that beat up Cavalier jumps out. She grabs the woman's purse, throws it in the window of the Cavalier, dives in, and off they go. Then my prayer, whatever good I'm supposed to do, don't miss it, popped in my head. And I went, all right, kids, get your seatbelts on. And I threw my expedition in drive and I started chasing them. Now, there was one point where they were going this way and we were going this way. And my 4th grade daughter, Abby, just screamed out, Dad, we're going to die. And I said, you're not going to die, Abby. Get your seatbelt on. So she got her seatbelt on. We get behind him. 911, I call with the only cell phone we had, and I called the Dixon Police Department dispatcher. Now, I didn't know that the dispatcher that I had on the line was retiring that week. It was at the end of his career, and he didn't care. So I call him. I'm embarrassed to tell you. I called him, and I said, this is Wendell Brown. I'm in hot pursuit. I just witnessed a purse snatching, and I'm driving, and the kids are screaming, and I'm behind them. Their license plate is da-da-da-da-da. And he said, all right, sir, thank you so much. Whatever you do, don't you lose them. Okay, sir. So I'm chasing him. There was a red light. I said, sir, there's a red light. What do you want me to do? And he said, run it. I said, yes, sir. I ran it. I'm in chase. I chased them for 20 to 25 minutes. Tammy comes out of Kroger. She has no clue where I am. I chase him. Literally, the deputy comes out next to me. Now I'm in the county. Okay, I'm out of the city. The deputy comes next to me. It's on a 4-lane road. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, it was like a Top Gun moment. I was like, I got you. And he got in behind him, right? He got behind him. We went back, and Tammy discovers what had happened to us. Anyways, I learned they called off the chase that night because they were worried about the safety of their officer and the others. All I'm saying, 3 kids expedition, I didn't lose them. That's what I want y'all to know. I didn't lose them, okay? Safety, all right? Anyways, so they end up catching him, and he was a drug dealer. It was just a mess, their lives. And I had to go in at lunchtime to identify them. So the detective is a female. She works for the city of Dixon. Her husband is a deputy. He works for the county of Dixon, Tennessee. And he's there on his lunch break to have lunch with his wife. It's in the middle of the day. I walk in, and she starts explaining everything that had happened. And I needed to identify them. And I said, okay. And then she looked at me, and she said this. She said, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. She said, why did you do this? And I said, well, you see, Ephesians 2, no, I didn't go into that. I said, because it was the right thing to do. And she said, nobody does this anymore. And she looked at her husband, and she said, I'd like to know what he does for a living. And he said, well, ask. And so she asked, and I said, and I really didn't want to tell her, because every time, I'm not ashamed of being a pastor, but so many times in community, well, you'll see me Sunday, Pastor, I'll be there. And you're like, quit lying. You know you're not coming. So anyways, I told her, and she said, she looked at her husband and she said, I think I want to go to his church. And he said, I think I want to also. And she said, what you don't know is neither one of us have been in church our whole lives. We've never been. She said, but both of us have been saying that we're missing something in our life. And we wondered if church could do that for us, could solve that. They actually came that Sunday to church. And both of them that Sunday went to the altar and accepted Jesus Christ as their Savior. Now it gets better, because we had Upward Soccer, and Grandma, whose purse was stolen. I learned through the trial that Grandma was an atheist. She was an atheist. And I'm coming off the soccer field. You can ask Tammy about some soccer battles for our coaching days and how I always won unless she bribed them with pizza. Okay, whatever. Anyways, I'm coming off the soccer field, and I see the grandmother. And then she motions for her granddaughter. She says, come here. She says, I want you to meet him. And I walked up, and she said, now, Pastor Wendell, you know I'm an atheist. I said, duly noted, I know. She said, I told my daughter that there is no place on earth I would trust my granddaughter to than your church if you're going to care for people the way that you do. Upward builds towards awards night. And on awards night, grandma accepted Jesus, and so did granddaughter at awards night. Now here's the thing. That is not a message. I literally, the only reason I did anything is because I prayed a prayer that God wanted me, that whatever you've had in advance for me to do, don't let me miss it. So it's not about me, I'm telling you. But there is something about, as God looks at your life, all around the world, people that live in this world, they're about their daily lives and don't give 2 seconds thought to anybody else. But when you know, there's two types of people. There's people that walk in a room and go, here I am. And then there's people that walk in a room and go, there you are. Christians, we're supposed to be there you are people. That's what we're supposed to be. And there are people in your spheres of influence everywhere that are just looking for somebody to care for them, to notice them, to say, you matter to me. And who knows what could happen in their life if we were intentional. So to be trustworthy, I believe with my whole heart, we tell the truth. We live in faith. We live with honor when nobody's looking. And we care for others. Would you stand with me tonight? Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Sometimes in those 4 areas, sometimes I might get 3 of them right, but I might be deficient in one. Or I might be, man, I got this one really good today, but man, I'm still lacking on the other. I don't know. I know that I've seen too much dismay in the church caused by people who proclaimed to live but weren't living it. And I believe that it is high time that each one of us, we assume the mantle. We don't dip our toes in the world and play games with it. The word says we're separate. We're called out. If I'm going to be like Jesus, like Jeff challenged us with last night, I've got to step out. I've got to actually say, I want to be used for special things, Lord. And the people that God counts on are the people He knows He can trust in all manner and facets of life. And I'm just asking you, are you trustworthy? Can He trust you? Or are there areas that you need to work on? I want to just give us a moment, because I don't think this is something we can play games with. I'm either committed to it or I'm not. Amen? I either want it or I don't. And I just want to ask you, who really wants it tonight? God, I want you to look at my life. I got nothing between us, God. I want you to look at my life, and I want you to see me as a person you can count on. A person that will do and say and think and act in a way that honors you with all that I have. God, if you want it, you can have it. And if that's you tonight, I just want you to come. No games. We're not gonna sing forever, but I'm very serious about this. Look, maybe you're getting so many facets of life right, but that honor thing, man, I'm still struggling there. Can I just say, tonight's the night. Tonight's the night. Just step out. Who else? Who else? Somebody else. Somebody else. I promise I was going to preach a different message, and I felt like this was the one. This was the one for tonight. Anybody else? Look, I'm not sure. Not sure I've been living it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I want God to use my life. I want to be somebody that He trusts. Listen to what Wesley said. Wesley said, let me be your servant under your command. I will no longer be mine. I will give up myself to your will in all things. Lord, make me what you will. I put myself into your hands. Put me to doing. Put me to suffering. Let me be employed for you. Let me be laid aside for you. Let me be full. Let me be empty. Let me have all things, Lord. Let me have nothing. I freely and willingly, with an open heart, give my life to your pleasure and disposal. Can you say that with an honest heart? God, it's my life and I surrender it to you tonight.
As we wrap up this week's episode, we're reminded that God isn't simply looking for ability or for talent. He's looking for people he can trust. Reverend Brown's challenge is clear. Tell the truth, live by faith, walk with honor, and care deeply for others. When we faithfully live out the gospel, we become people through whom God can accomplish great things. Thank you so much for listening to the Shepnaz Podcast. We pray this message has encouraged and challenged you in your walk with Christ, and we hope you have an amazing weekend. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.